So, I guess it's time to start the second day. First of all, hello from my side. If you haven't joined yesterday, I'm Philip, the Technical Steering Committee Chair of the ELISA project. And when I start, first of all, I want to welcome you all being here today. Yesterday, we had the updates of the horizontals. Today, we look more into the verticals of ELISA. And for those who haven't been in there yesterday, just briefly, the ELISA project is there to enable safety critical applications with Linux. I'm pretty sure you have the basic background on this, otherwise you wouldn't have found the invitation for today. And then just to mention what I find important is the second part, where Lisa looks into dependability and reliability for whole Linux ecosystems. I guess we also see it today because the use cases groups and the systems group addresses much more. It goes for industrial grade Linux distributors, it goes into cross-project collaboration, and it really looks in having reproducible system parts with elements, processes, tools. And if you haven't done yet, there are many ways to join our community. So you can subscribe to mailing list, join our meeting. They are open by default. You find the calendar also on the ELISA text side. You can subscribe so get notifications when meetings happen. We're always happy to get issues or pull requests or anything else to be contributed on GitHub. And of course, you can meet us at events. The next time some of us will be at the Embedded World in Nuremberg. We will pretty sure be at the Open Source Summit North America. And these are also always informed in the events section of the ELISA page. If you haven't been there yesterday and you're interested, so you may have missed the project overview, but well, we will have a published recording on YouTube most likely somewhere next week or so, and we will also publish the slides in the ELISA directory. If you don't know what the ELISA directory is, you can find it on the ELISA Tech under the resources part. But wait until next week until I've collected all the slides, put everything in there, finished the pull request on GitHub for it. And by this, I go for my pre-last slide for this 5-minute welcome back. What do we expect today? We're finishing off with the welcome back. Because it makes life easy, you will get the next 25 minutes also with me, where I talk about systems and automotive, followed by Kate about for medical devices. We have Matt for the aerospace part. Then we have a new topic with a space grade Linux. This hasn't been there last year, and Ramon will give us some insights on this. And the closing and final thoughts are really, really just short, so we will not spend like 50 minutes or so on this. It's basically just wrapping up the afternoon, morning, wherever, depending on where you are, we had. So we're at 3:04 UTC now. And if someone has a very urgent and important question, you can drop it in the Q&A. And otherwise, we will soon move over to the systems and automotive session. And I briefly stop sharing so that I can switch the slide decks. So, I see no question. Then I will move on. Put this into presentation mode. And share again. Share screen, share. And we're good. Now I actually even see that I'm sharing. That's great. So this session is about the systems and automotive workgroup. That's how we called it. Systems is mentioned first because it's the most part of the presentation, while actually this, therefore I also start with the automotive part. So actually the order would be better other way around, automotive workgroup and systems workgroup. Why is that? Some light on the automotive workgroup. The automotive part is currently operated as part of the systems workgroup. It's a little due to the capacity reasons which we have. We could look for additional people joining, also being able or willing to host the automotive workgroup. But we also see, due to the current happenings in the automotive space, which high performance computes, and then also electronic control unit centralization, a lot of topics about mixed criticality, where you put different workloads on the system. This is all topics which we also discuss in the systems workgroup. And within the systems workgroup, we also have regular participation from AGL. So therefore, we have the link to our former main use case with automotive grade Linux. And how you can see this, that we even have participants from the Eclipse software-defined vehicle who joins from time to time, recently more regularly. And this also fosters the collaboration in the automotive space. Even if there is not really the automotive workgroup meeting happening like for many other workgroup meetings, still automotive is the center of many ELISA discussions. You can see this also due to the member sites and the industries, the requests which we get. So we just need to look for a new use case. This said, what would it need to revive and activate a dedicated automotive workgroup meeting where it makes sense to discuss pull requests and whatever? Um, I think one point would be a real good use case. I know a lot of people talk about driving assist as camera-based use cases. And if you don't want to think that far, we could also start with updating our Meta ELISA layer, which is still there, but on an old AGL release. It's not really fully supported currently. So it would be really great to migrate this to the latest release of AGL and also go from currently Qt rendering into Flutter because it's a more common thing. Uh, then the former instrument cluster, which we were bringing to a good state, can benefit from a more SDV-driven use cases. We have discussions already ongoing, may also end up with an SDV-based webinar in the coming months. So this could be a point. So far, we were using QEMO. An idea could also to bring this on a new reference hardware. This will also benefit the systems work group. And then we could use what we have done in the past to analyze the workload tracing, put requirements to the other work groups. So the other work groups would also be happy to get the automotive requirements. And still, of course, we could have a closer collaboration with AGL. This would be something where a dedicated meeting would benefit. And I don't want to spend much more on the automotive work group as such. Just saying like it's in an active pause state. I'm very happy that we just recently also got a mail again asking some questions. So this is something where things hopefully move forward. We just need to create a little more traction to make it worse as a dedicated part and not treating it as a systems workgroup alone. And yeah, talking about systems, that's where different parts get together. Let me first briefly share what the systems workgroup definition is. So you find the long text on the ELISA tech page where we basically say like this is where we go for. And yeah, the systems workgroup aims to enable other working groups. So we look at more on the system perspective, we put it on the system context. That's why we also interact with many other communities and sometimes new initiatives like the safety, aesthetic safety parts came out of these discussions. And yeah, we may go also with other topics out there. Then whatever we do, we want to have reproducible because demos are out there many, but you typically just get an binary image. And what we really focus on is to have full documentation based on real world architecture. And last but not least, fully based on open source technologies. So you shouldn't find any proprietary piece in what we're doing. And we really encourage the interaction with other projects. And this means either those which help enable safety use cases with open source or which plan to make use of mixed criticality system and based on all the products. So we could also look into industrial use cases or automation, robotics, and so on. We're not limited to this. Whenever it comes to systems, I had this slide also yesterday. It's very important for me to say that assessing whether a system is safe requires understanding the system sufficiently. And that's really a systems thing that you need to get a good feeling how you make use of Linux, how is the role of Linux in the system context. It could mean also that you do not give all responsibility to Linux or that you have to give more responsibility to Linux depending on what you want to achieve. And therefore, you also then look into the component, the features, you break these down, which then would be analyzed by other work groups. And yeah, we elevate things for safety. Then you identify the gaps which you have, and there are gaps, of course. So that's where we go. And this said, let's maybe look into some achievements from 2024. Yeah, 24 in a nutshell. We had QEMU enhancements before we were having a pure hardware demonstrator, and the hardware was quite expensive, but we saw based that it was a Xilinx XU board. Their QEMU ARM emulation, it's not as fast as the real hardware, but if you run it on x86 as a QEMU ARM 64, you can still experience all the things which you want to have. A really great thing, which I want to mention explicitly later, is the Embedded World Showcase. So we could bring the setup, what we've prepared from the system, Square Group as a hardware showcase into the embedded world, promoting it there last year in Nuremberg. And we had great HBOM discussion. There's the HBOM group in SPDX as well, meeting weekly. So that's a topic where we've presented our example system also at the ZAL. It's close to Airbus, Lufthansa Research Institute for Aerospace in northern Germany, Hamburg area. Right then, yeah, on demand, we also discussed about open source software records on similar system architecture, showing like, is it really relevant what we are doing? Do we find supported items? And yeah, this I will also shortly show because I think it's a good collection of links. Yeah, what's going on? So this was like, say, yeah, here we have a tick box. Other things were started. So like the OSS good practices discussion, specification standard, however we want to call it later on. We initiated also the tiny config discussions, which is mainly taken or fully taken, I would say, currently from the Linux features. So Alessandro is doing a great job here. And then, yeah, another topic started is to come to a GitHub-based CI where we generate an SBOM for a continuous compliance argumentation. We want to really get to in what's in the system, what can we test against, where do we have regressions, how can we track databases, and that's something in prep. Right, and we also have a regular exchange with the Automotive process SIG, which is there in the Eclipse Foundation because we see that we are working in areas where they also work, and we want to avoid confusion in the automotive community. So we bring these pieces together. In concrete, to the first star, the example system at the embedded world. I showed this slide yesterday with a little bit less text, and what I really forgot to mention is that it was Collabora hosting out there. So they offered the space, they helped us in printing the collaterals for this and so on. So I guess it was really great. Even if Collabora is not a member, they support us here and there. So, and as I showed the members yesterday, and this was a good contribution, I want to value their work here as well. Yeah, for this use case, there's detailed documentation available. Show a bit of this in the following slides. It's built in these are CIs, so you can get the image built and see this. It's also a focus on reproducibility, as we said, so you can follow the documentation and build it on your own, or take outputs and follow how the Docker container is created and how the images are done. And this would be a real base for extension, for changing, and that's something which we plan further to also look like where will we go from a hardware perspective. We see that the Xilinx 2 is a very nice hardware, but it's also already a little bit in age, so it's not a fresh hardware anymore. And the board which we used, we could made available because there were views from other projects, but it's also super expensive, so it's not a community hardware. That's also why we have the community version, the QEMU version available. This year we will look for a new hardware. Candidates could be like an ARM QEMU next to the x86 QEMU because there's ARM servers running out there. Straightforward way would be a Xilinx Kria, a Raspberry Pi 5 because there has been architectures been proven on this. What I could also imagine is to get to the completely different view with microchips, because they have like some RISC-V architecture and they show up recently in ELISA meetings. Or we go for an i.MX95, because there's good prototyping boards available for a lower price. So we are open there. If someone brings already a system set up with this and has the willingness to do so and support us, then just reach out. This would be really great. This I put in for the reference and the handout parts. You can just see like what the board is, where you have the links to the reference manual, what we basically set up. It's quite a huge board. And then I also move over just to like show how things are. We built on Xilinx Yocto and then some BSP parts. Apertus is a Debian-based build, which also is under the hood of Collabra. And then what's quite nice to see is even if it's the Xilinx board, we had a prototyping development also on RCAR on the Renesas side, and as we run the Zephyr on the microprocessor side, and it's the same microprocessor architecture, which we used compared to the Xilinx board, we could even reuse the build from the RCAR on our demonstrator, and then we have the Peter Linux build also for certain demo setups, so that we have different versions also here. We brought this main part on the USB stick, while the bootloader from the Xilinx Yocto mainly resides on an SD card, interacting with USB Ethernet adapter, local Ethernet, just have two network connections, interacting with serial console, and so on. That's basically the things you see in here and booting the different domains and so on. So this is what we showcased. And all this is documented. So you find it under the ELISA repository with under workgroup systems documentation, then the Xen demo XU, and the README. Here's also like how you set up the QEMU system for a bootable image. So if you scan the QR code, it should directly put you there. Here's a link if you follow the slides later on. Right, then we have one point to show that there is similar architectures available. Basically, I saw a lot of this also during the Embedded Open Source Summit in Austria, Vienna, 2024. So I just put like similar things in there. There was some demonstration from AMD. Then there was Vert.io, which Zephyr and Linux, Xen by Linaro. There was a showcase by Texas Instrument. And it's really a topic still. And it's a system which you find. I had a nice call today with Itzal again, and also there we just discussed that they are migrating to new hardware, still putting in Xen, Zephyr. They discuss on how to move on, what role Linux has, what role the RTOS has, and so on. And that's not completely new. So you can see that in 2022 there were examples also available. These are the YouTube links. So if you want to follow this, just go there. I found one without the Xen part, but like Linux and Zephyr talking to each other on the same SoC. So you can see also there was something, it was even from 2018. And of course, our whole work of the systems demo was presented by Stefano Stabellini in 2022 on the EOS Embedded Linux conference in Austin. So that's how we came together, because we had the same idea more or less at the same time and set to bring it together. This is the part about the example system. Another big topic which came up during the year was the open source good practices. And what's behind this? It's, well, yet another standard kind of thing, you can say. Why do we want to talk about this current development model? So in critical infrastructures, many people judge on the V model. They have a requirements-driven development process, quality standards like ASPICE and CMMI. And you can see it with the emoji. Actually, nobody's strictly following the V model. Many talk about many little small iterations of V model. And you find a way of a little bit of arguing, but actually available standards are not really matching how your quality software is created in the open. So, and there's no existing standards, at least put in the chat or in the Q&A if you know a good one, because we're currently assessing this. We want to harden this statement, but currently we believe there's no existing standard which matches decent software development practices, being code-centric, CI/CD driven, with an agile focus of development, basically on how you set up decent open source projects these days. So therefore, the goal of this activity, and we just call it standard because the regulated industries love to have standards. Could also be a specification or so, or a guideline. But let's say the goal what we have is to evaluate and document established open source development best practices. And this means we don't want to write something new. We just want to say, here is so many good things out there. And it's proven, for example, with cybersecurity and critical system there, where you heavily use open source, and you would not use open source software in a very sensitive cybersecurity related system if you don't trust in using such libraries and so on. So there need to be a certain trust, there need to be a certain quality, and this need to be recorded, tracked, whatever, and measured so that you have also a subject or objective feeling on this. So we want to provide an assessment guide for the user to rate the quality of open source projects. And how do we approach this? How do we go there? The overview depends on three phases. We want to have a clear determination of the status quo. We define of practices which are going on there, and then we will assess pilot projects. So you can see this here. We look into safety standards, security standards, whatever is coming as demands. We have then our search fields of any standards which belong to it, what has been reported in literature about open source, what actual open source project does, bring it to really concrete examples, and then create summaries, see where can we enhance, where can we draft something, where can we showcase so that we make this real, and put this then into potentially a new project, bring this into communities, maybe use a joint development foundation. Already discussed this idea with the SDV part, had first initial thought with OpenChain, went to chaos that's there, and this will really drive us also in 2025. So going a little bit to the plan there, I see three pillars maybe from within the systems workgroup. We have the good practices in open source parts, which we continue. We create new hardware, and we will interact with other workgroups. We will also enrich our community engagements as we had with SDV. We will also make more outreach to kernel CI. The lower parts are those which we already have heavily utilized automotive grade Linux for the automotive work. So that's just an example. What you don't see here is the chaos community. Here we already have a 2025 example of an unconference session because we wanted to have the good open source practices being described there, discuss it with the chaotics, how the chaos community calls their members. And we got good inputs for strong involvement of foundation, getting our standard authorities involved, and that we should enhance and not add efforts to people. So like these kind of things were really good. You see the posted there on the window, which we had from the discussion, and this was really a nice thing where we can collaborate. If you get interested, there's many ways to get involved. You can join the systems workgroups meeting Mondays, 16 UTC, and during winter time, summertime, daylight saving time changes to 15 UTC. Mailing lists are there for the systems and automotive. I recommend to go, or you can basically choose both. You will get response on both. And you can also just issue pull request or even better just participate. So everything is welcome, review, drop issues as you like. And by this, I will say thank you and open the room for potential question if we have them. So I guess yesterday I had initially some issues with the Q&A part as it was not showing up questions. If there is one, then you just need to let me know. Not
Yep.
that the same thing happens like yesterday.
Bruce, you raised your hand and I
Oh,
yep,
great.
go ahead and unmute yourself to talk. There we go. Go ahead, Bruce.
Some audio issues.
Yeah, we can't hear him. You can also type in the chat or
Yes.
Q&A window. I can see Bruce is muting and unmuting his audio, but no audio is coming through.
How's
No.
that?
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
Good.
I must have clicked a button, and also it says that chat is disabled, by the way.
Oh,
But I did
okay.
not have any questions. Thanks so much. Great presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, then Karen drops on, do you see future plans to integrate with ISO coding best practices? Yeah, why not? You can see it from the overview as such. We want to see if we enhance or draft new standard. The thing which is important for us that we do not put additional burden on open source project, but maybe look into, okay, there is an existing work which enhances quality and stability, reliability, robustness, whatever you have, and we want to bring this into standards. So if you have a specific ISO number in mind, Karen, then please share, because we are in the phase of looking like what are the related standards and potentially drafts. I know you're quite good in the overview of ISO's activities. Yeah. Okay. If there is no further question, I'll stop the sharing and hand over to Kate, I guess, for the medical one, if I remember correctly.